Chosen one, listen. You are not standing in front of a fantasy. You are standing in front of a plan. Not your plan, not their plan, God's plan. I know the ache in your chest, the exhaustion in your prayers, the way your phone screen has become a window you keep looking through for a sign that never seems to come. I know how doubt has learned your name in the dark, and how it whispers the same sentence over and over. Maybe I made it all up. But hear me, hear him, above the noise of your fear. Do not doubt. This person is not a random attachment or a rehearsal for disappointment. They are part of the ultimate plan God has been crafting for you. The evidence is not in the speed of the storyline. The evidence is in the signature you can't escape, those repeating names, improbable timings, lean-in dreams, holy déjà vus that outlast logic. What your mind calls coincidence, your spirit recognizes as choreography. If you could see what heaven sees, you would stop calling this season silence and start calling it sequencing. God is not stalling, he is aligning. He is removing counterfeits that would waste years, healing fractures that would sabotage covenant, and turning hearts that still imagine safety in avoidance. You feel a pull that refuses to thin with time because what God has joined in intention, he refuses to let dissolve in delay. So the signs repeat, not to tease you, but to steady you. Not to make you chase, but to make you hold. Doubt asks for proof first. Faith receives peace first and then watches proof arrive right on time. Let us name the hardest part out loud, the gap between what you feel and what you see. You wake with their name like a bell in your ribs, then spend the day negotiating with uncertainty. You ask if you should close the book to save your heart. You ask if you should run from what hurts to protect what's left. But the truth keeps returning like tide. This is not obsession, it is recognition. It is your spirit acknowledging a partner God intends not merely to comfort you, but to complete the assignment on you, to build, to bless, to break cycles, to lift generations you'll never meet. The plan is bigger than butterflies. Butterflies can animate a moment. Purpose sustains a marriage. God is not handing you a sparkler. He is forging a covenant. Here is the promise I need you to hold as oxygen. God is working on both sides. On your side, turning longing into preparation, tenderness into strength, hope into holy patience. On their side, unlearning fear, unsoldering pride, closing doors that kept them numb, softening what once felt like stone. You are not the only one sensing the line between you. They feel it too, sometimes as ache, sometimes as clarity, sometimes as a dream that refuses to fade in daylight. The same presence that keeps you from quitting is the presence pressing on them to stop running. God will not force love, but he will make running uncomfortable when the road is wrong. So what do you do in the meantime, between confirmation and manifestation, between promise and arrival? You become the steady place you're praying to share. You build a life that does not beg to be rescued. You guard the oil of your peace so that when the door opens, love meets you whole, not hollow. You practice the small fidelities that make a future durable. Truth without theatrics, boundaries without bitterness, rest without guilt, prayer without panic, generosity without scorekeeping. You move like someone who already knows the end of the sentence God is writing. Good. And because this is a message designed to hold you in the hours when doubt returns with its rehearsed script, receive this as your anchor. You are not waiting for a human who might or might not choose you. You are walking with God who already has. The choosing has begun. Let that reality quiet the emergency in your body. Let it give you permission to stop staring at doors and start setting the table. If the knock happens today, you'll open with calm. If it happens later, you will still be found flourishing, not freezing. Before we step into the next chapter, where I'll show you how God confirms a destined companion and why repetition is mercy, not manipulation, take 2 tiny steps that keep this word alive in you. Subscribe now, not because numbers matter, but because your clarity matters. Each new chapter will meet you where your next decision lives, so you're not white-knuckling this alone. Comment 111 below. For us, 111 is a simple seal of divine alignment and a new beginning, a quiet covenant between your spirit and God's timing that says, I choose peace over panic while you finish what you started. Breathe. You are not late. You are not delusional. You are not alone. You are a chosen one being guided by a hand that knows the end from the beginning, and the plan, your plan, still includes the person your heart keeps recognizing. Now let's walk it out with wisdom. When God is the author, repetition is not redundancy, it is mercy. He knows the hours when silence will press hard on your ribs, when logic will marshal its evidence, when fatigue will try to rename faith as foolishness, and so he writes the same sentence into your life in 10 different scripts until your spirit stops mistaking clarity for coincidence. A name that surfaces in unlikely places, a song that lands like an answer you didn't say out loud, a dream so vivid it lingers like perfume in the morning, timings that align with a precision you could never choreograph. He is not entertaining you. He is steadying you. The point of a confirmation is not to make you chase a person. It is to anchor you in a promise while he works where your hands cannot reach. This is why the story of Thomas matters here. He walked with Jesus for years, watched blind eyes open and dead things breathe, and still, when resurrection arrived, doubt spoke first. Jesus did not shame him for the honesty of his ache. He met him inside it. Stop doubting and believe. And then gave Thomas what he needed to cross the threshold from fear to faith. Evidence that was specific, personal, undeniable. God has not changed his posture. When your mind circles, when you stand in the doorway of disbelief and say, "Unless I see," heaven does not discard you, it draws near. The confirmations you keep receiving are not a test you're failing. They are the touch points by which God leads a trembling heart through a long corridor. Yet there is an order to this that protects you. Confirmation is not a command to control the outcome. It is permission to wait without withering. It says, hold your posture. Let me handle the process. The author is finishing chapters you cannot edit, untangling loyalties that kept them numb, turning stone into flesh in places where fear taught them to feel safe only behind walls, removing counterfeit comforts that would fracture a covenant you're asking me to bless. Your job is not to turn signs into strategy. Your job is to turn signs into stillness. Stillness does not mean inactivity. It means refusing the kind of movement that breaks what God is binding. It chooses prayer over pressure, preparation over panic, dignity over drama. You will know a confirmation is from God because it carries peace instead of adrenaline. Adrenaline shouts, do something now or lose it forever. Peace says, what is yours by promise cannot be stolen by hurry. Adrenaline makes you draft speeches at 2 a.m. Peace makes you breathe, bless, and go back to sleep. Adrenaline turns you into a supervisor of outcomes. Peace returns you to the posture of a steward. You tend your inner life, you honor your boundaries, you grow your gifts, you keep your days honest. In that posture, the repeated signs become what they were always meant to be, a soft hand on your shoulder reminding you that the author is still at the desk. There is also a holy precision in how he confirms. He will echo truths you have encountered in the quiet, so you learn to trust the voice you hear there. He will use the ordinary, street names, casual conversations, a passage you happen to open to, because covenant is supposed to fit inside ordinary days. He will not flatter your panic. He will father your peace, and gradually the measure shifts. You rely less on external signals and more on the inner witness those signals trained. This is maturity, when the signs outside no longer have to shout because the spirit within has become familiar enough to be believed without a parade. If doubt visits tomorrow, do not crown it. Let it speak, and then let it sit beside the evidence of a faithful author. The sustained pattern that makes randomness an unlikely narrator, the way your heart has been purified rather than poisoned by this journey, the fruit already forming in your life, deeper prayer, clearer boundaries, kinder strength. God's confirmations are never only about the other person. They are about forming a you who can hold what you're asking for. That is why the signs have kept pace with your growth, not to tease your desire, but to teach your discernment, not to inflate your hope, but to anchor your holiness. So when the next whisper arrives, another alignment of timing, another dream that does not fray in daylight, another moment of inexplicable peace, receive it without grabbing. Lift your chin, steady your breath, and let the decree do its work. Do not doubt. You are not hallucinating a future. You are being escorted toward it. The one who began this chapter has not put down his pen. He is confirming not to make you frantic, but to make you faithful until the page turns and the promise walks in, speaking the same peace you learned to live before you ever heard their knock. If this was only about relief, it would have ended when the fireworks faded. If this was only about chemistry, time and distance would have diluted it by now. The reason the pull persists is purpose. God does not knit two lives together simply to soothe loneliness. He pairs assignments. He crafts alliances that carry a weight no single soul can shoulder for long, and he calls that sacred pairing covenant. Covenant is not a louder feeling. It is a larger mission. It does not survive by accident. It survives because heaven keeps investing in it, training your patience, refining their courage, pruning both of your histories until what remains is lean enough to travel far and strong enough to last long. You already sense this. Somewhere beneath the ache there is a knowing that your union would do more than make weekends happier. Together you would break patterns that have run through your families for generations. Silence that swallowed truth, anger that disguised fear, scarcity that taught love to hoard. Together, you would build rooms that heal people who never learned what safety felt like. Together, you would host presence in ordinary spaces, kitchen tables, routine commutes, late-night conversations that keep someone from quitting. The enemy does not waste energy fighting sentimental stories. He fights strategic ones. That is why resistance has been so tailored, why counterfeits have mimicked the real with unnerving precision, why the timing has demanded more surrender than you thought you possessed. You are not being punished. You are being prepared for stewardship. Purpose also explains the difference between rush and rhythm. Lust insists, hurry or it will vanish. Calling says, become who can carry it. Hurry gives you sparks and then demands more oxygen than you have. Rhythm gives you a steady flame that warms a house, not just a moment. This is why God keeps slowing you at the exact points your fear wants to sprint. He is protecting the future from the shortcuts that feel heroic now, but leave foundations cracked later. He is teaching you to let love learn your actual name, truthful, rested, fruitful, instead of the frantic version of you who performs to be chosen. The person he is shaping on the other side is learning the same lesson, to choose with clarity, to approach with humility, to stay with consistency. The union you're asking for is not built by butterflies, it is built by becoming. Think about the fruit that follows a purpose-built bond. Peace stops being a rare weekend visitor and starts living in the hallway. Decisions get cleaner because your values finally match your vowels, what you say and what you align up in the same sentence. Finances move from reaction to vision. Work stops stealing all your energy because love becomes a refuge that refuels it. You pray more simply and see more steadily because agreement multiplies sight. Even the way you fight changes. Conflict becomes a laboratory for truth instead of a courtroom for punishment. None of this requires perfection. It requires presence, two soft hearts with firm spines, choosing repair over retreat and rhythm over drama. This is why your single season has been so exacting. God is not withholding the person. He is installing the purpose. He is building the muscles you will need when promise becomes daily practice. The muscle that tells the truth without theatrics. The muscle that rests before resentment grows teeth. The muscle that blesses without keeping score. He is teaching you to be whole now, so you do not demand a person to complete what only God can crown. And on their side, he is dissolving the disguises, pride that poses as strength, independence that hides fear, busyness that keeps intimacy at bay. When the two of you finally stand in the same room with that inner work mostly done, the atmosphere will tell on you. Peace will arrive before words do. Honor will take the first step. The future will feel quieter because it is no longer being dragged by panic. Understand this, and the waiting stops feeling like punishment. It begins to feel like investment. Every day you choose formation over frenzy, you're funding a future that won't collapse at the first storm. Every prayer you pray for their healing is a brick set into a bridge neither of you could build alone. Every boundary you keep is a guardrail that will protect the covenant from the very temptations that once felt flattering. You are not merely loving a person at a distance. You are partnering with God to prepare a platform where love can stand and serve. So lift your eyes from the calendar and look at the calling. Ask the better questions. What will our union heal? Who will it lift? What will it build that outlives us? Let those answers become your compass. Let them choose your habits and curate your company. Let them decide which rooms you stay in and which invitations you decline. Purpose is the North Star that keeps romance from losing itself in weather. And when the moment comes, when humility replaces hesitation and consistency replaces confusion, you will recognize the real not only by how you feel, but by what the union does. It multiplies life, extends peace, deepens truth, and makes God easier to find in the ordinary. That is the plan. That is why you are still being held. And that is why you must not doubt. God's plan does not rush people into promises they are not yet able to protect. He forms hearts until the promise would be unsafe without them. That is why this season has felt like a slow, precise renovation, more than a grand reveal. On your side, He is trading adrenaline for authority, teaching your hope to breathe without demanding evidence on the hour, turning longing into a daily strength that can bless what it loves without clutching it. He is stitching peace into places where panic used to live, so your yes will not tremble when it is finally time to speak it. He is growing your boundaries into a gentle spine, no longer a barricade built by fear, but a door on hinges that opens for what is true and closes for what corrupts your oil. Even your body is being retuned. Fewer jolts of urgency, a steadier breath, the return of appetite for ordinary joys. This is not you moving on, it is you moving up, into the version of yourself that love can sit beside without carrying. At the same time, God is not leaving them to figure this out alone in a maze of their own defenses. He is dismantling the scaffolding that pride built to keep pain from being touched. He is reintroducing courage where self-protection became a personality, loosening the loyalties that kept them numbed, and bringing honest mirrors into their life so denial loses its camouflage. What once looked like indifference is often the fatigue of a heart that forgot how to be seen. God is teaching them the difference between relief and restoration, between chemistry that burns hot and commitment that remains when feelings change temperature. He is walking them back to their real name so they do not approach you with a mask in one hand and an apology script in the other, but with presence, clear eyes, unhurried words, a humility that can repair and a consistency that can keep repairing. Preparation, on both sides, is not glamorous, which is why many miss it. It sounds like early nights so your mind can hear God without the static of exhaustion. It looks like simple meals and long walks and work done with clean hands, because honesty in small things teaches your soul how to hold larger gifts. It feels like forgiving quickly, repenting quickly, and letting the past shrink to its proper size. You will know formation is working when you stop narrating your worth to people who decided not to listen, when you stop performing availability to prove kindness, when you stop shrinking truth to keep temporary peace. The more you honor these quiet changes, the less room there is for anxiety to rent in your chest. Your days begin to read like a steady yes instead of a stalled story, scripture that reads you back, prayer that listens, purposeful labor that doesn't steal your joy, rest that isn't guilty, friendship chosen for honesty over distraction. There is a mystery in how your growth echoes into their process. This is not manipulation. It is the physics of spiritual connection. When your worship deepens, the line between you stops carrying panic and starts carrying peace. When you release timelines, an unseen pressure lifts from their shoulders, making room for courage to rise without the fear of failing your expectation. When you bless their becoming instead of supervising their pace, shame loses its leverage and honesty can finally breathe. As you stabilize, you quietly announce a truth their nervous system needs to hear. You are free to return as a whole person. There is no stage to perform on here, only a table to sit at. Do not despise the slowness. God is not building a centerpiece for one glittering day. He is building a covenant that survives all weather. The hours you spend learning to speak the short, true sentence instead of the dramatic paragraph, will one day save a week of misunderstanding. The practice you gain in leaving rooms when your peace begins to cough will one day keep your home's atmosphere clean. The habit you form of blessing in private rather than protesting in public will one day preserve the dignity of two people who intend to love each other long. This is the hidden arithmetic of formation. 1,000 small obediences add up to one unmistakable authority, a presence that does not need props because it has a rooted center. And when the page turns, preparation will reveal itself in the ease with which you stay yourselves while you become an us. Your yes will not be a rescue mission. It will be a recognition. Their approach will not be a performance. It will be alignment. The conversation will not sprint because hurry is what people do when they are trying to outrun truth. It will breathe. Patterns will change, not only promises. Effort will arrive, not in fireworks, but in weekday consistency. And your peace, the one God installed while nothing on the surface seemed to move, will not have to contort itself to remain in the room. That is the quiet confirmation preparation was complete. Love fits without forcing, and the future feels quieter because fear is no longer setting the pace. There comes a point in every God-authored story when you realize the resistance has never been about your worth or their feelings. It has been about the promise that threatens darkness if it ever fully breathes. The pressure you have felt, the delays that seemed engineered to fray your patience, the counterfeits that arrived speaking your prayers in borrowed phrases. These are not random weather patterns. They are the noise that rises whenever covenant is near. Spiritual warfare begins to make sense the moment you stop swinging at people and start naming the real enemy. Fear disguised as wisdom, shame wearing the mask of humility, pride pretending to be strength, distraction dressed up as destiny. You do not defeat these by arguing harder or chasing faster. You defeat them by standing where heaven stands and speaking what heaven speaks, even when your senses tell you nothing has moved. Intercession is how you fight clean. Not with pressure, not with manipulation, not with midnight speeches you regret by noon, but with a posture that carries their name into the presence of God and leaves it there without a leash. When you intercede, you trade ownership for stewardship. You stop praying as a supervisor of outcomes and begin praying as a guardian of process. You bless their courage where fear has made a home. You bless their clarity where confusion has been buying time. You bless their dignity where shame has been the loudest voice in the room. You ask God to do work you could never manage up close without wounding, deep surgery that unties the knots of history, reteaches the nervous system the feel of safety, and restores the language of trust so their yes can be free, not coerced. In this posture, you love them better than any text could show, because you are fighting for the version of them that covenant requires, not the comfort of your timeline. This kind of prayer changes you as much as it changes outcomes. You begin to hear where your own fear still narrates decisions, and you bring that too to the altar. You notice the places where hope had become a bargaining chip, and you release them, letting God be God while you return to the dignity of your lane. Your boundaries become an act of spiritual warfare, quiet doors on hinges that keep your atmosphere clean so your discernment stays sharp. You stop letting panic draft your sentences. You stop letting loneliness rent your calendar. You stop letting algorithms dictate your pace. Instead, you carry a climate that refuses to merge with chaos. Rooms feel it when you enter. Accusations lose their oxygen. Counterfeits dim because your peace does not negotiate for attention. Warfare also looks like honoring what is true over what is loud. Truth is a sword that does not require shouting. You do not rewrite red flags in softer ink to keep a fantasy intact. You do not baptize anxiety and call it discernment. You do not confuse chemistry for calling or apology for alignment. If something steals your breath and shrinks your clarity, you step back without assigning villains. If something stretches you and still leaves your peace intact, you step forward without theatrics. The enemy's favorite trap in holy seasons is urgency, forcing you to choose before wisdom has finished her sentence. Intercession slows the room until wisdom can be heard. It lets God sequence the timing so that what is born is sustainable, not spectacular for a weekend, and exhausted by Wednesday. When you contend for the promise, you resist the impulse to prove or perform. You remember that you are not trying to convince God to do what he already intends. You are consenting to his way of doing it. That consent sounds like prayer whispered without an audience, like sleep received as faith instead of escape, like work offered with clean hands while your heart stays unhooked from outcomes. It looks like blessing them when their name rises at inconvenient hours, and then returning to your assignment with a steady jaw and a soft voice. It feels like refusing to weaponize silence against yourself or against them. Heaven trusts people who do not use power to punish. Heaven trusts people whose love has learned to protect without policing. There will be days when spiritual static tries to make everything feel suddenly fragile. On those days, resist the urge to audit the relationship or autopsy the future. Audit your posture. Can your peace breathe in this hour? Can your prayers bless without bargaining? Can your body slow down long enough for your spirit to lead again? Warfare is rarely won with one dramatic scene. It is won with 1,000 quiet refusals to abandon what God said. Every time you choose presence over panic, boundaries over bitterness, intercession over obsession, you push back a little more darkness from the path both of you will walk. And when the battle shifts, because battles do end, you will not need a trumpet to tell you. The air will change first. The old tremor will be absent from your hands. The urge to monitor will have nothing to feed on. They will approach with a softness that does not collapse and a strength that does not pose. Humility will replace hesitation. Consistency will replace confusion. And your spirit, trained by many quiet altars, will recognize the sound, not the scramble of grasping, but the cadence of a promise finally permitted to become a life. You will have contended well because you did not try to own a person, you honored a plan. When God turns the page, it rarely feels like fireworks. It feels like alignment. The first sign is inside you. Peace arrives before any visible change. Quiet, buoyant, unreasonable peace that releases your grip without dimming your care. Your body stops waiting for impact. Your mind stops manufacturing speeches. You are not disengaged, you are finally entrusted. That inner stillness is God's way of marking the hour, so you won't crown adrenaline as destiny when movement begins. Then patterns, not promises, begin to change. What once came in fragments now arrives as follow-through. Effort shows up on ordinary days, not just dramatic nights. Words that used to outrun character begin to walk at the pace of integrity. You do not need to decode mixed signals. Clarity becomes the language you both speak. Where you once strained to keep hope alive, you find hope breathing on its own. The atmosphere between you feels like a room with windows open, fresh, honest, unforced. Humility is the hallmark of true return. They won't perform repentance, they will practice it. Apologies will be specific and repairable, not poetic and vague. They will name the delay without defending it, take responsibility without self-punishment, and ask what repair requires, rather than bargaining for quick relief. You will recognize the difference by how your nervous system responds. Safety is recognizable. Your breath stays low, your shoulders soften, your discernment doesn't have to dim to stay in the room. This is not the sweet talking of yesterday. This is the fruit of formation on both sides. Consistency becomes the quiet miracle. Communication doesn't spike and vanish. It develops a rhythm. Curiosity returns, real questions about your heart and your days, not just small talk, designed to keep proximity without commitment. Boundaries are honored as doors on hinges, not treated as walls to push against. Honesty, even when it costs comfort, becomes normal. You will notice that conflict doesn't terrify either of you anymore. It becomes a place to practice truth without violence, repair without theater. That is covenant readiness. Two soft hearts, with firm spines, refusing to weaponize vulnerability and refusing to worship convenience. You will also sense the mission rising beneath the romance. The union begins to bless beyond the pair. Peace spills over into your work. Courage surfaces in decisions that had stalled. Old family patterns lose their leverage under the weight of mutual agreement. Prayer grows simpler and sight grows steadier because alignment multiplies clarity. You are not clinging to each other to survive. You are standing together to serve. The relationship stops asking to be the entire meal and becomes a table where others can be fed. Even in this holy turn, do not abandon the order that carried you here. Let peace continue to lead so proof can keep its place. Move at the pace of truth, not at the pace of fear. Keep the practices that formed you. Quiet mornings, honest words, clean work, guarded rest, so visibility doesn't erode what the hidden place built. Welcome joy without rushing it to perform. Let trust accumulate like daylight, one faithful hour at a time. If something almost right appears as the door opens, you will know it by the tax it demands. Counterfeits flatter loneliness and quietly invoice your peace. The genuine stretches you without shrinking your oxygen. You won't need to manufacture certainty. Alignment will supply it. You will feel permission to be fully yourself, and they will come as themselves. No mask in one hand, no panic in the other. Presence replaces posing. Agreement replaces guessing. The future gets quieter because fear is no longer setting the pace. When the plan manifests, it will not rewrite history. It will redeem it. The waiting will make sense without needing to be justified. The ache will turn into empathy for each other's becoming. The delays will look like the guardrails they truly were. And your love, less glittering than fantasy, more luminous than you dared hope, will read like what it is. A covenant authored by God, carried by two willing hearts, strong enough to hold a life and soft enough to heal the world immediately around it. Do not doubt. This is what you have been formed to recognize, to receive, and to keep. Chosen one, breathe. You are not wandering through rumors. You are walking inside a plan. Doubt tried to rename your faith as foolishness because the timeline felt slow and the silence felt loud. But across these chapters you've seen the pattern. God confirms what he intends, prepares what he promises, and protects what will carry purpose. The pull you could not shake was never a trick of memory. It was the signature of the author who wrote your union with a mission bigger than butterflies, a covenant designed to heal, to build, to bless. You have learned to read the hours, repetition as mercy, resistance as proof of significance, formation before fulfillment, intercession instead of obsession, and the final stretch where peace arrives before proof. You have learned the posture that keeps you whole. Truth without theatrics, boundaries without bitterness, work with clean hands, rest guarded like covenant, prayer that blesses more than it bargains. You have learned to contend for the promise, not to control a person, trusting that God is working on both sides with a precision you could never supervise, softening what was stone, dissolving pride, lifting shame, aligning timing so love can breathe beyond a single moment. Here is how you carry this forward. Let peace lead you into every room, especially the rooms you have prayed for. Keep the altar warm and your days honest. Refuse the urgency that asks you to betray discernment to secure destiny. Measure movement by fruit, humility, clarity, consistency, repair, not by fireworks. Honor your boundaries as doors on hinges. Open when grace says come, closed when peace says enough. And keep your mission in view. This union is not a prize that replaces purpose. It is a partnership that multiplies it. If the page turns soon, you will recognize the chapter by its sound. Steady voices, soft eyes, effort that arrives on weekdays, conversations that breathe, a future that grows quiet because fear is no longer pacing the floor. If the page takes longer, you will still not be late. You will be found becoming the safest place for any promise to land. Either way, You cannot lose what is yours by covenant, and you cannot keep what would corrupt your oil. That is the kindness of a God who writes endings from the beginning and wastes none of the middle. So lift your head. Stand in the clarity you've been given. Bless what you love without clutching it. Walk as one who has been chosen not only to receive love, but to steward it. When the door opens, you will be ready, present, steady, whole. And if it opens later, you will still be living, laughing, building, praying, because your life was never a pause screen. It has always been a table already set. Do not doubt. The plan is active, the author is faithful, and your next faithful step is now.